Today's the 5th of March 2017, and we're going to talk a little bit about leaving Iraq and then getting back to Fort Lewis and kind of some of the adjustments that took place with that. We left Iraq the 16th of January 2009, and this was the completion of the 15 months. And I tell people sometimes just, to make it funny that I was there for 3 straight years, because whenever you take into account we get there the 4th of November of '07 and then we leave January of '09, there was 3 Thanksgivings, Christmases, and New Year's back to back to back. So you can honestly say you're there for 3 straight years. And but anyway, so leaving Iraq, there's a whole set of emotions that you're dealing with, and you're happy to go home. You're a little sad. You're leaving some of the buddies that you've met while you were there, and just you reflect. You reflect a lot about your experiences. Again, the people, and then you know what you're going home to, and so one little quick story before we left. This was about 2 weeks maybe before we left, and there's a lot of people who don't believe in God, and that's unfortunate. And I can tell you from personal experiences, not just from being a born-again Christian, but just from experiences in dealing with things in Iraq, God is completely real, and He sent His Son, Jesus, to die on the cross so we could all have eternal life. And but about 2 weeks before we left, there was one night I was just not knowing what I wanted to do. We pretty much had finished up all of our, right seat, left seat. That's just, Army vernacular of people are going to take your place and country, and then you leave. So you train them up and then you leave, So we were bored, didn't have anything ready to do around 8 o'clock at night. And so the PX closed at 9. And so I tell my roommate, Shafto, I'm like, well, I think I'm going to just go to the PX. And so I get ready. I was in my Army PTs and put my shoes on and, throw my weapon across my shoulder and get ready to walk out. Well, our door for our little hooch was it would lock, and when it locked, it was secure, but the handle was always very, very jiggly, if you will. And my wife has the word janky, so janky will work too. Anyway, so I go to put my hand on the doorknob, and it would take roughly around 5 minutes for you to leave your room, sign out at the headquarters building, and then walk to the PX, roughly around 5 minutes if you wasn't disturbed in passage. So I put my hand on the doorknob, and it is literally like iron. Like iron. The thing will not budge. And for whatever reason, I cannot move. And I'm just kind of transfixed in this one little spot for what ended up around 5-minute time period. And I can't move. I didn't feel alarmed. I didn't feel panicked or anything. I felt, I guess you could say, at peace. But I remember what kind of broke the feeling was Shafto, I guess, at some point in time during this, I thought he was taking a nap or something, but or watching a CSI show or something on his computer, and he starts laughing at me, and he's like, "Well, are you going to go to the PX or not?" And I'm like, "Mike, I can't move." And as this has taken place, that force that was keeping my hand on the doorknob subsided. And I was kind of laughing about it. I was like, well, what was that? Kind of a deal. And I just felt like, okay, well, I'm not supposed to go to the PX. So I sit down on the bed, and my bed in the hooch, and I take this weapon off my shoulder and put it on the bed, and I'm just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, just several rounds come in, and we had a thing. It was right at Signal Hill, and Signal Hill had what they call a C-RAM, and the C-RAM is like this big cylinder that has like radar in it and everything, and then it's got like a 50 cal, several 50 cal revolving barrels, and it's the purpose of it was always for like the Navy ships and so on and so forth. But we had one, and it would shoot out a lot of the rockets and stuff that was being sent our way. Well, ended up through reports finding out there was 8 rockets that had been fired in. The C-RAM was able to take 3 of them out. 5 ended up landing in and around the PX area. It didn't hit the PX directly. There was, I think, one trailer across the street. So if you're walking into the PX, it would be on the left-hand side of it. Walking out, it'd be on the right-hand side. I believe it hit one trailer over there, but nobody was in the trailers. And then with the T-walls, I think it pretty much contained all of the blast. But anyway, so we had this Air Force contingent with us. It was the only one I remember by name was Master Sergeant Coe. He was their NCOIC. Then there was several other Air Force personnel, and they were all postal, and they were fantastic at doing postal work. And they were leaving the next morning. Well, they were all pretty much in the vicinity, leaving the PX when the rounds came in, and one hit fairly close to the path that coming and going on that strip there where you walk towards the PX. I think they were already past that and everything, but if I would have left at the time I was going to leave, there was a very, very real chance that I would be walking right directly into the path of where that rocket hit. And even if shrapnel from the rocket, didn't find me, there was the ground was covered in gravel. And because whenever it rains in Iraq, that mud, it's horrible. So you have to have something for grip. I don't know if it's like oil that's in the soil or what, but it's so slick that you can't get any traction. So the gravel and everything really helps a lot with that kind of condition. And so I mean, gravel could have hit me, and or just the trauma of being that close to it. Who knows? But anyway, I say that just to say that God is real, and if you've never opened yourself up to God, I mean, I would strongly consider considering doing that. But anyway, so leaving Iraq, you're dealing with a lot of different emotions and stuff, and you hate saying your goodbyes, and just for a lot of different reasons and everything. And so whenever I remember, like Mueller, he came by the room, and there's few people, when you get to a point in time in your life where you can really say this person impacted me, this person has meant just tremendous amount to my life. Well, Mueller is one of those people for me, and I know for myself to him. And and that's difficult, but you're happy for the person and everything, and we'll see each other again. I'm fairly sure of that. But there's several others. I mean, Stansbury was very close to us and everything. Him and Mike were a bit more closer friends than he and I, but we're friends on Facebook and everything. And there's several others. I mean, I could name off 10, 20 people, and everything, and we're still friends today. But so we leave on the 16th. We get on the bird. We fly back into Kuwait, and so we get into Kuwait, and we're there for really just like 2 days, pretty much. And then we get back on civilian aircraft, and it takes us, and this really aggravated me because I volunteered for baggage detail so I could get first class passage going back home. Well, all of a sudden, here comes like 30 or 40 officers that was not supposed to be on the manifest, and they take up all of those first class seats that all of us that was on the baggage seat. And there's, when you're dealing with several hundred soldiers on one of these huge, like 787, whatever it was, airplanes, I mean, you got a lot of bags. And so there goes my opportunity to sit in first class. So anyway, maybe next flight I'll get a first class. So, but I did it aggravated me so bad. So you fly back. We flew back into Fort Dix, and it was cold. It was snowing. This is early January, and so we were at Fort Dix for several hours, and I was able to walk around a little bit. Fort Dix didn't go too far from where we were, and I still have today in my little cabinet over here. I still got the little manifest for the flights and everything, leaving Kuwait to the States, and then they gave us another little manifest because we were going to drive into the Philadelphia airport, and then leaving from Philadelphia back to Fort, SeaTac, and then Fort Lewis. I always get Stewart and Lewis mixed up for some reason. But anyway, so kind of walked around a little bit at Fort Dix, kind of saw what it had to offer, so on and so forth. And then we made our phone calls, of course, our families and friends, and just kind of giving them the heads up. We get on these buses. They take us to the airport at Philadelphia. The hat I'm wearing here, this is a hat for the University of Penn Quakers. The significance for the hat was one of my old bosses. His son was on the crew team at UPenn, and so I saw it in the lid store in the airport. So I figured I would buy one, and for TJ, and this is the first thing I bought of any significance coming back from Iraq. But anyhow, long story short, so we're in the airport for several hours, and of course you're in your uniform, and people would come up and want to thank you for your services, and it's really, even now, it's like you don't even know exactly what to say. You definitely say thank you out of courtesy, because the general public, they don't have to thank you. They could you'd be like Vietnam, they could spit in your face, and but you're thankful, but it's just it's almost like, well, what do you say? And even like now that I'm out of the Army, I have thanked people for their service and stuff, but it's still a little strange to say it. But that's, I know I'm not the only person, but it's kind of how, it just, I don't know. Anyway, so so we're there, and we was in, and I don't remember if it was like TGI Fridays or something, they had Applebee's or whatever they have there in the airport. And I think it was Captain Logan's birthday. And this was like the 18th of January. And some girl that was a waitress that was like a contestant on American Idol, I think it was. She sang him a song for his birthday, and I think it was Captain Logan. It might have been started at the top. I think it was Captain Logan. And but anyway, I don't know what song it was, but she sang it good, whatever it was. And you could definitely tell that, you know, there's talent everywhere in this world. That's for sure. The girl could sing, and anyway, so we're in the airport for several hours waiting and waiting. So then we get, to board the plane, and we fly back, and we get back to Fort Lewis, and we go back to the company area. They kind of moved locations a little bit, and they had the company by this point in time, the 22nd, had stood up and was a functioning company. And I didn't know what to expect or anything, but they did a really good job. They did a really good job in putting forth a little package together for us all, especially if, like myself, was going to be in the barracks, and they had us some bed linens. They had, the rooms was all nice and put together, had some snacks in there and some drinks, and it was just very nice. It was very, very nice, very small, very intimate, but it was very nice, and I was always appreciative of that. So then we, after, I guess, about a week, maybe 2 weeks being back, of course, you have your reintegration. And the first day of our reintegration, a very American historic event was taking place, and it was the inauguration of Barack Obama, the first black president of the country. We were not able to watch it because we were in this old, like, World War II chapel there on North Fort Lewis, starting our reintegration process. But regardless if you voted for him or you didn't vote for him, it was a very historic moment in American history. And we all wanted to watch it and see it. But we just wasn't able to do it. But while that was taking place, that's what we were doing. We were in this old, cold church, chapel, trying to, listen to these briefings and fill out paperwork that was just boring as all get out. But anyway, so after about a week, we finished up all of that. We put in our request for travel to go on leave and everything, and then you go home on leave. And one of the significant things for me was my uncle and I, because I didn't have a vehicle at Fort Lewis, we drove back from here in Cobb County in Georgia, because I'm from Florida. But they were already living up here, and so we left here, drove across the country. So it's a beautiful country. So if you've never driven the country, drive it. Okay, see it. See the places that you read about in books and you see in pictures and stuff and whatnot. And and there's more to that trip than I'm going to go into in this video, but that's, see the country. See the country. It's your country. Go see it. So then, getting back to life after deployment is a little stressful, because I think even before we left, Shafto, before we left to go on leave, Shafto had a rental car, and so he had his car, or he was driving the rental car back to the place that his wife rented it, or his first wife rented it from. I was following him in his car, and for whatever reason, he went inside, I was there in the parking lot. For whatever reason, this one guy came up to the door. He was like a sales guy, whatever. He was very nice dressed. I wasn't threatened by him, and per se, but I remember I had like my hand on the switch mechanism to draw up the window, and I was a little unnerved by it and everything, and not so much by him per se, but just the fact that this interaction was taking place. I didn't feel like there was any need for him to be there. And I remember he was looking at my hand. He was like, dude, why are you doing that? And I guess that was the first sign that I had changed. Because remember from previous videos, I talk about, whenever Captain Logan had set up the conference, if you will, to go listen to soldiers who had already had the deployment, how it kind of changed their behavior, and I kind of scoffed at that. Well, here I am exhibiting some of those same things, so it really kind of hit home. And then of course, after being home for about 6 months, about the time of my birthday of that year, I was starting to really showcase some signs of PTSD, anxiety type disorders, and everything, and it was very scary. It was a very, very scary time, and but it was part of. I tell people sometimes whenever about being deployed, the war part of it was 15 months. The second war, if you will, with myself, and it wasn't like I was flat out crazy or anything, because I met some guys who had experienced, far more than I experienced. And I'll never take away from what their experiences were to make myself feel, I'm quite okay with, I had my issues and stuff, and I'll get into some of those stuff a little later on in some other videos. But some of these, when you see soldiers who have seriously gone through trauma and stuff, then it puts what you go through in perspective. So, but anyway, I was showing some signs of the anxiety issues, the situation I told you about with Mama Dia, well, I'll tell you one real funny story here. And it was because of that situation at Mama Dia. It was a Saturday, and I was already back at Fort Lewis for about 2 months and everything. It was a Saturday, and artillery ranges are not too far from where we were on North Fork. And you hear the explosions and the concussions of the blasts and everything. And I remember I was in bed. I literally jump on the floor and try to get underneath my bed. And because I'm thinking, oh my God, incoming. We got incoming coming in. And then it dawned out on me after about 15 seconds that this was a Saturday. I was in the United States of America. I was at Fort Lewis, and this is training exercises. So it does. It does kind of play with it, and trying to readjust is very difficult. People who say that you're unchanged from your experiences, they're telling you a lie, and you definitely change. Some significant, some minor, but you do change, and that's not always a bad thing. Iron shapes iron and everything. And that's hard. People go through hard times, and hard people doesn't mean that's a negative thing. It just means you're tough, and you have to become tougher and everything. So I think that's kind of the significance of it. If you look at it in a positive sense, then I think you come away with a lot more of appreciation for what you've done and what you've gone through, who you've become. So it's all good. It is. It's all good. It's difficult. It's hard. But again, if you look at your experiences when you've gone to a theater of war, you've experienced everything that you can experience out of it. You come back from that, and it takes you a while to kind of really get back on track. I think you're better for it. You are. and you appreciate what you have in your family, in yourself, in your country. You appreciate it that much more. But anyway, so this will close up volume, what is this, 8, 9, I think it's 9, I think it is, volume 9. So the next video I'll talk about is, again, at Fort Lewis, and basically just getting back to work, getting back to life. So until then, this is Caleb signing off the net.